Welcome to Tsunami Conversations, the platform to engage on theological discussions, spirituality, church polity, and religious matters. Our aim is to impart knowledge to the people of God. Welcome to Tsunami Conversation.
Our country is democratic. And wherever you go, people are voting for, we're going to vote now in a regional, local election soon. And therefore the church becomes conformed to the world, conformed to society. And therefore we have even a slate of leaders. And I don't think that discrimination against LGBTQI people are out of fear. It's more out of hate or anger or a sense of complete rejection of this as inhuman. This is
and
not
also some binary traditional aspects to it.
Yes. So look, patriarchy is the cultural world in which the Bible itself was formed, and in which the church has operated, and in European cultures and African cultures and all over the world.
Greetings and welcome to our very first episode of Tsunami Conversations. This is a podcast where issues of theology, religion, and spirituality are going to be, ventilated upon, and through various speakers or guests that are going to be invited here. We are hopeful that many of you will be able to find it worthwhile, insightful, and educative. So we thank you very much to our viewers, followers, and subscribers. Don't forget to go to our YouTube page at Tsunami Conversations Podcast. That's where every material will be shared, and that's where you'll be able to access every part of our conversations. Today, we are having our guest in the studio, none other than Professor JNJ Kritzinger. He will be in conversations with us regarding everything theological, church polity, or anything that is centered around those types of engagements. Prof, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ntai. And thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate talking to you and listening to you, and opening up conversations wider to people out there who want to think about theology and church and Christianity and in relation to our situation in the country.
Thank you so much, Prof. Maybe just to take it from there, many people might not know who Prof is. I don't want to assume that everyone might know who Professor Kritzinger is, but just on a lighter note, when have you started with theology? Just your journey. It doesn't have to be long, but just a brief outline of where you started and the courses maybe that you have taught throughout your journey, maybe as a professor and also as a lecturer. But lastly, which is very important to me, also on a lighter note, the number of students that you have supervised previously and maybe currently.
Wow. That could take a long time if I talked about all of that. Well, let me make it short. Yes, I've retired. I'm an emeritus professor from UNISA. I taught theology there at UNISA since 1981.
Yes.
Until I retired in 2015. I became a church minister in 1975, worked in the Reformed Church in Africa, and then the Uniting Reformed Church when it started in 1994 in the Melodia Tshwane congregation in the city of Pretoria. But so I taught missiology, which is the study of Christian mission. And many people think that is mainly about converting other people, in other words, and therefore it's colonial, and therefore it's problematic. And I understand that critique of mission, but at UNISA over many, many years, influenced by my own doctoral supervisor, Professor David Bosch, is a well-known, world-renowned missiologist. Mission is wider than just evangelizing.
Yes.
It's about working for justice. It's about working for the integrity of the earth, in other words, ecological activism, and building viable faith communities, and about working for reconciliation between people who have become estranged from each other. Yes, I became a professor in 1995. I was very fortunate and very privileged to supervise 23 doctoral students.
That's quite a lot.
Well, there are people who did a lot more than that, but it's quite a tricky enterprise to be a good supervisor.
True.
But in any case, so within missiology, my real interest was I wrote on my doctoral thesis on Black theology.
Okay.
As a challenge to the understanding of mission and the practice of mission in South Africa, which was a really life-transforming experience for me, to really engage Black intellectuals who are Christians and who are anti-racist and who didn't give up their Christian faith because of the racism of apartheid, but developed an anti-racist Christian approach that deeply, deeply influenced and shaped me. Also intercultural communication and becoming aware of your own cultural biases, becoming sensitive to other people's cultural worlds, and how that affects how people believe.
Yes.
But I think that's enough about my history. So,
I think you have given us more than enough, Prof. And thank you so much for that background. Which then leads us to, I think, the main gist as to why we are here, the Tsunami Conversations. The theme for this particular conversation, Prof, it's more or less centered around the theme of hermeneutics of church polity. And maybe before we can even go further, just for you to articulate the difference, because someone automatically, when they hear the word polity, they will want to associate the word with politics. So maybe just to give us just a brief epistemology of the word. Is it politics or it means something completely different?
Yeah. Well, the English language is a complicated animal, let me say, but also very fascinating. Now, the word polity is used in different ways.
Yes.
But in the church polity is, you could say a good synonym for that is church governance.
Yes.
So it's the way in which a church organizes its authority. Where is authority exercised, by whom, and about what? And so you have different forms of church polity. You have hierarchical systems where you have, like the Roman Catholic Church, which is very centralized in Rome, the Vatican. The Reformed churches have a more of a flat structure.
Episcopal.
Well, episcopal, the Greek word episkopos means a bishop,
yes,
an overseer, one who's responsible, yes, who looks after people. So episcopal, there are many Episcopal churches that are not Roman Catholic.
Yes, yes.
But so the Catholic Church is one particular Episcopal system. But now in the Reformation in the 16th century in Europe, the Reformed tradition developed a structure which says, look, we don't have officials that are higher than an elder.
Yes.
And a minister is in the Reformed tradition often viewed just as an elder, a teaching elder, but not on a different level from an elder. So presbyter means elder, And so the presbyters have the authority, whether they are ordained as ministers or unordained as sort of ruling elders,
Yes.
as they're called. So the church polity is how do you organize where decisions are made. So the church council is the local congregation. That's where decisions are made about the affairs of this congregation, about their building, about their policy, their ministry, all the different forms of service they render in the community. Then a presbytery, or sometimes called a classis, is a wider body. Now, this is in the Reformed tradition. But so let me not go much further. Let me rather just come back to the word hermeneutics,
yes.
because you're using big words here. Now, hermeneutics is the art of interpreting. And I think it's very important to understand that when you're reading the Bible, you're operating within a certain framework. You don't come like an empty page and the Bible comes and writes on you. You come with a cultural worldview.
Yes.
You come with a language. And the Bible was not written in English. It was written in Greek and Hebrew. And so interpreting those texts from within where you are in your world, you have to admit where you're thinking from.
Yes.
You're not doing theology. You're not reading the Bible. You're not doing church polity on a cloud. You're doing it in a particular context. So you have to admit where you come from and how you understand the context around you, because that affects the way you then read Scripture.
Yes.
We don't come innocently or empty to the Bible. So there's a conversation that happens between the Scripture and the reader.
Yes.
And the reader doesn't come alone. The reader comes from a community. So it's communities reading Scripture. That's hermeneutics.
Tradition as well.
Yes. And those congregations, those communities have a history. They trace back to the early church,
Yes.
but then also to in the Reformed tradition, back to Calvin and Luther and other leaders in Europe, and then local ministers and theologians who shaped these churches, these Reformed churches in South Africa. So the hermeneutics of church polity would mean, how do we interpret the tradition we have, whether it is in the Bible or then in the confessions that have been written to formalize and to summarize and to interpret Scripture, or then the church orders. Now, church order is a set of rules.
Yes.
And so your church polity is visible in your church order.
In the church order. Yes.
And the church order then also has stipulations that give finer details, that give hands and feet to the sort of principles that are enshrined in your church order.
Yes. So that is more or less...
That's the terrain you're talking about.
Okay. Now, Prof, maybe building up on that, I've observed that quite a number of denominations, more especially the mainline churches, have been having quite a number of meetings, maybe for the lack of a better word, some says assemblies, AGMs, so that's the platform where most of the critical decisions of the church, regardless of which denominations I'm referring to, that's where decisions are being taken about the life of the church. And now I've been made aware that there was a council, International Lutheran Council, I think a few weeks ago here in Pretoria. It was quite a council that some of the huge decision concerning the life of their church is concerned were being taken. And our church, the Uniting Reformed Church in Southern Africa, will also be heading to its 9th General Synod in the upcoming months, in Maseru, Lesotho. I think the hosts are Free State and Lesotho Synod. Now, many people are having different anticipations regarding that particular synod. And I just want to pick your mind as to what is your anticipation or your expectations coming out of that particular synod.
Thank you. Yeah, look, let me first talk about the word synod.
Yeah.
You see, one of the principles in Reformed church polity is subsidiarity. And that's a bit of a strange word. I actually just came to know about it quite recently. The principle is that you try to finalize a matter at the most local context as possible.
Yes.
So if a church council can finalize a decision, it does not get referred to a broader body like the presbytery. If a presbytery can finalize a matter, you don't refer it to the regional synod. If a regional synod has the authority in your rules to finalize a matter, it does not get referred to the general synod. Now you finalize a matter as locally as possible. So why is the general synod there? That's why I'm saying all this.
Yes.
So we're going to a general synod. So what is the task designated to a general synod in the rules, in the church order and stipulations of the Uniting Reformed Church? It's basically a policy-making synod. In other words, it doesn't discuss matters on the ground. That's what is done in a church council or a presbytery, and often then referred to a regional synod.
Yes.
So it's about general policy about the formation of ministers, about liturgy, what are the basic rules for how to worship in the congregations, and other policy matters that get referred to it. It has core ministries and support ministries dedicated to different aspects of ministry, but it is the ministry of the local congregations that basically shape the agenda of the General Synod.
Of the General Synod, yes.
So it's not the head office where some other people, some higher bodies, some higher organizations or individuals decide about us down here. When you go to the General Synod, you find us.
Yes.
You find ministers and elders. So in our system, in the Reformed system, there's no bishops or cardinals. We are all on the same level, but it's the broadest body. But because it is the broadest, it has more authority. But it's us, delegated from presbyteries who meet one another at that most broadly constituted assembly of the Uniting Reformed Church. So what am I expecting? Well, one doesn't
just your general expectations.
One doesn't really know until you see the agenda. And the agenda, as we speak, is being finalized at the moment.
Okay.
So how does the agenda get constituted? Each regional synod has a moderamen, a leadership elected by the synod. They write a report that reports on what happened in this regional synod in the last 4 years. Because the general synods meet every 4 years.
Yes.
So in 2022, there was a synod in Stellenbosch. Now it's 4 years later. So one would have to look then to what are these regional synods reporting?
Okay.
What's happening in their area? But also the General Synod has these ministries, a core ministry for proclamation and worship. So they will report on the ministerial formation program.
Yes.
The new ministers were being trained and licensed, and about current affairs, doctrinal affairs, about liturgy and worship, etc., service and witness. So the whole scope of ministry, which happens in local congregations, are reflected on by all the congregations gathering together as a general synod. I don't know if there are particularly difficult issues. Look, there was a problem in 2022 at the election of the moderamen of the General Synod. And this is where polity and politics come together. Yeah. When there's elections, you think it's democratic, isn't it? Because people are voting.
Yes.
But the church is not democratic. The church is Christocratic. It is Christ is the Lord of the church.
Yes.
The triune God gathers the church. The Belhar Confession, which is sort of one of the key doctrinal standards of the Uniting Reformed Church, says it is God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit who gathers, protects, and nourishes the church. In other words, the church is God's work. So when we're voting for leadership, it's because we're saying, look, we don't have a pope or a cardinal or bishop who can appoint the leaders. We have to appoint the leaders together, but that doesn't mean we have the power.
Yeah.
Or our power is very limited because we have this power under God. So we need to find God's will to elect God's leaders for God's church. And that often doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, yes.
Because a moderamen is a situation of honor and prestige, and therefore, in a sense, it's a position of power. Although our stipulations define a moderamen as a support ministry, not even a core ministry. In other words, it's not supposed to dominate the other ministries. It's supposed to coordinate and unite and gather, but not to give instructions. It is the body that the moderamen as 4 people cannot give instructions to the other ministries. It can guide together and call bodies that can give instructions, like a synodical commission or a synod. But so there's competition because our country is democratic. And wherever you go, people are voting for, we're going to vote now in a regional, local election soon. And therefore the church becomes conformed to the world, conformed to society. And therefore we have even a slate of leaders. And that causes tension. Because quite rightly, members say, but look, if you beforehand are canvassing for a slate of leaders, are you really seeking God's will for God's church? Or are you seeking power for your group, your clique, your whatever, your region, your friends? But you can never exclude that kind of planning and looking forward and deciding who should be the next moderator, who should be the next assessor or the actuarius, these posts on the moderamen. It's not wrong to plan, but it's wrong to caucus, and it's wrong to beforehand assume you know who will be the best people, because then you're literally not seeking the guidance of the Holy Spirit in the first place, but the interest of your smaller group.
Maybe just to pick on that, Prof, you mentioned one important aspect of the IM model, which is the core ministry of proclamation and worship. I think, as you have already alluded, that their report will carry quite a variety of activities that they have engaged upon as a core ministry. But one huge expectation, which is more or less expected from that ministry, is their report about the issue of human sexuality, which has been dragging for years. I think you were there in 2005 in Pietermaritzburg. I was not yet there. I was not yet Muruti by then. But I know that you've got a recollection of the series of events and the developments around this human sexuality issue. I don't know, is the church afraid to take a decision on the issue of the LGBTQAI plus community and actually have a standpoint? I know quite a number of denominations, even outside UXA, have taken position on this issue. You can cite the Southern Synod, which has got a standpoint on this issue, but unfortunately, their standpoint is limited if the bigger body has not yet taken a position on this thorny issue of our church. Do you see the synod ventilating that particular issue and actually coming out with a decision that is going to guide the church when it comes to the queer community question?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a large question. Let me go back to 2005. The General Synod there took a wide-ranging and very positive decision.
Was it Peter Marisburg?
Peter Maritzburg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2005, Peter Maritzburg Synod. It took a very widely welcoming, open decision about that. It was then called homosexuality. It wasn't broadened into LGBTQ, etc. But the church said we welcome and we embrace and we affirm whatever a person's sexual orientation is. And the reason for that is that the Belhar Confession, which is really the heart of the Uniting Reformed Church theology and practice, says that genuine faith in Jesus Christ is the only condition for membership in this church. Now, if you say that, then you can't say, oh, well, you can be a member provided you're not homosexual or lesbian, you see. And the reason why the Belhar Confession states it in that clear way is because of the racial exclusions of the Reformed tradition before 1982, when the Belhar draft was written,
yes,
and 86 when it was affirmed as a confession. People could not belong to certain churches because they were not white. And the separate churches were set up for Indians and coloreds and Africans. And to fundamentally undermine and reject that, Belhar, the Dutch Reformed Mission Church at the time, said, that's not the Church of Christ. In the Church of Christ, there can be no conditions for membership except genuine faith in Jesus Christ. And so the 2005 said, we have no problem, we affirm, we welcome people of any sexual orientation. Two issues were left undecided and were referred to the following synod.
Okay.
That was the question of, can an actively practicing gay person be licensed and ordained as a minister? It was the one question. The other one was, will the church bless a marriage between a gay couple, between two men or two women? So that was then addressed in 2008, a long, very lengthy, very detailed report by a number of specialists in the Uniting Reformed Church. And their recommendation to the 2008 Hammanskraal General Synod was, we have to treat all our members in exactly the same way. So you don't ask those questions when it comes to licensing or ordination. And if they're allowed to marry in terms of the law of the country, then you marry them, also as a church. Otherwise, if it's not a marriage, you blessed it as a civil union, but you pray for God's blessing on that covenant relationship between that loving couple. Yeah. That was not accepted, and that created quite a bit of tension. Dr. Alan Busak, who was involved in the Belhar Confession from the start and the whole movement that led to the Belhar Confession, he made a very strong point that if we have the Belhar Confession, we cannot do anything else but be unconditional in those two issues as well, of ordination and of marriage. Solemnization of marriages. But so it was referred again to a study to 2012 in Namibia, Okahanja. There was a general synod where it still wasn't finalized. So it shows you that this is a sticking point in the church, culturally and religiously. So that open decision of 2005, in a way, was almost being questioned, that is that really what we believe and what we live as congregations? 2016, again, the matter wasn't finalized. It made a very strong statement, against corrective rape, because that's one of the ugliest forms of what would be called homophobia, of discrimination. Phobia is actually the wrong word. Phobia means fear. And I don't think that discrimination against LGBTQI people are out of fear. It's more out of hate or anger or a sense of complete rejection of this as inhuman. This is
And
not
also some binary traditional aspects to it.
yes. So look, patriarchy
Yeah.
is the cultural world in which the Bible itself was formed, and in which the church has operated, and in European cultures, in African cultures, and all over the world, that a woman, when she's small, she's a girl, she's under her father. And when she grows up, she has to marry, and then she marries, and then she's under her husband. But a woman is always under a man. That's patriarchy. And what makes the LGBTQ lifestyle so threatening in culture and in church is it undermines patriarchy.
Yeah.
It questions it at a fundamental level. That's not the way it has to be. In fact, that's not the way it must be.
Must be under.
Yes, and that a woman must always be under, and therefore a woman must be with a man, and a man must have a woman. A man can't have a man, because then you're undermining patriarchy. The obviousness of this is what it is to be human is this binary that you're talking about of male or female. And now one understands that because it comes a long way.
Yeah.
But
But I was saying, Prof, but there is also this other point of contention from, I think, the queer community or the queer theologians. I can cite Reverend Monetti and also Dr. Hanslin Davids. I think they have written extensively on this issue. Now, there is this point to say we are not objects to be studied. From 2005, this matter has been deferred and delayed because to them, it will not appear as if the church do not have the material and the information around the question of human sexuality. I will speak of human sexuality because it's a broader term and an umbrella term to all of these subterms that we have. Now, will it be correct if the queer community within the church in this upcoming General Synod propose that the study must be stopped because every synod it will be deferred under the pretense that let the study go on. There is still some study happening, even when it is evident that we've got every material which has been produced by the queer theologians in our church. Surely the church must be at the point now where it says we take this particular standpoint. So maybe just to shorten my question to you, will it be acceptable if a motion comes and say this matter will no longer be deferred and this matter will no longer be subjected into some study because the study has been made?
That would be an interesting proposal. I have no idea what report will come from the Core Ministry for Proclamation and Worship about this. Now, you see, this issue has split other churches, and that's why many people are very cautious about it and careful about it. The Dutch Reformed Church itself, the Afrikaans Church, you could say, have decided at the General Synod level context that we leave it to local congregations to decide. So in terms of that subsidiarity principle, they say, look, we're not going to make a general policy on this. We're going to say a local congregation can finalize this issue. It's not for us to make a general declaration that this is the policy of the whole church, because there isn't agreement on it. There are people who definitely feel that this is not acceptable in the church. Now, so there's a whole theological debate that must happen in local congregations about this. But that caused quite a bit of tension in the Dutch Reformed Church. It caused a group of people, congregations, to be on the verge of splitting and leaving, because whether we like it or not, the patriarchal system the patriarch I talked about earlier, is very powerful. It's deeply ingrained, not from yesterday, but from generations. And therefore, it's a cultural, deeply embedded cultural issue. But so I would think that would be, I can understand the feeling of queer theologians and members of the church that we are not problems to be studied and to be decided about, and nothing about us without us as well. Let's talk about what congregations need to do. You see, this is where church polity, it's a deeply church polity issue.
Yeah.
Is it necessary? Is it the matter for the General Synod to make a decision about this? If Belhar has already said there's only one condition for membership, and membership would then imply your whole life as a member, your marriage, your funeral, your birth, your ordination if you're called by God, your whole membership then.
Those are your rights and privileges.
Yes, rights and privileges is sort of political language, which must always be balanced with responsibilities. Then you can use those words, but not without responsibilities. Yes, it's part of membership. And therefore, let's stop talking about it. Let's stop debating it as if these are problem people. These are problems we need to decide about. I think that would be a very sensible proposal to make. But that would mean, going along with it then, according to that subsidiarity principle, then to leave it to local congregations to live the Bible and to live the Belhar Confession without needing a policy statement more than what Belhar has already said. I think I don't know if that would be acceptable. That would be a creative way forward. It would be a human way forward.
Because, Prof, I think you remember the issue of the Sunday school issue, or let me rather say the infant Holy Communion, which was also highly contested in the church. And some churches were also divided by the very same issue of whether a little child can participate in the Holy Communion or not. And the decision was then taken to say, let each and every local congregation determine and examine its own local context. And if it's befitting, then they can administer Holy Communion to infants. Do you somehow feel even this one will take the similar direction to say, let each and every local congregation, as a general synod, this is our decision. Let those who are ready, or those who are fond of this practice, for the lack of better word, let them continue as per the local condition dictates. Do you think the decision will be more or less around that?
I don't know if the LGBTQI decision at the General Synod will be similar. But yes, you see that the decision was taken in that way because the General Synod in 2001 already, who decided that in principle that was allowed to welcome baptized children to the Lord's table. There wasn't a complete consensus about it from everyone, but they said we can understand it, we can see it, that there's an argument to be made for it. And if a congregation has workshopped their members, and there were a number of conditions, it wasn't just a blank check. There has to be preparation of the children and a process of catechism material to prepare the children.
Prepare, yes.
But again, it was like this question, the issue of the only condition for membership. There, the decision was baptism confers membership.
Okay.
You're not a half a member and then later you become a full member.
Full member.
So that whole language of confirmation being full membership. So what were you before that? An empty member or a half a member or quarter member? Because so it's about the theology of baptism. If baptism confers membership, then you're a member of the church. And if members get fed at the Lord's table, like in a flock, it's the little lambs also get fed.
Yeah.
They also need to grow. They just like the rams and the ewes need to be fed. So so that we don't need to talk about that in detail. But the principle was, let a church council then workshop this theologically, understand the principle, what baptism is all about.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one of the big problems in our church that we devalue baptism tremendously. It's just a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's like a naming ceremony or something. Whereas it's a fundamentally radical thing that happens to a human being when God says, you by name, I will be your God, and you grow up to be my person, you must be my people. That covenant idea, which is fundamental to Reformed Christianity anyway, that through baptism one can then remind children all the time of their baptism, growing up into Christ, into maturity, so that they affirm it for themselves as they grow. They're not little heathens, little outsiders. They're born within the covenant community, surrounded and covered with God's promises of presence and grace and mercy and protection. So it makes sense to baptize infants, but then you have to take the consequences. All right, now, so back to the LGBTQ.
Yeah.
It may be that the General Synod says, let's take a similar decision, or decide not to take a decision, but simply to stand by Belhar, which says that no other condition for membership.
In short, the Belhar has already taken a decision on behalf of the church.
But then you must understand membership in a totally inclusive way.
Yeah.
That it includes your marriage, it includes everything about you, and ordination if you're called. Then you don't need to qualify that any further. You just need to define what membership means,
yes.
how inclusive membership is. I once was in a group discussion with some LGBT. It was the I Am movement. It was in Stellenbosch.
Oh, okay.
And they were talking about Article 4 of Belhar. It's about justice.
Okay.
We're being discriminated against and sidelined. And I said, perfect, but don't limit it to that, because that almost, in a sense, confirms victimhood, almost lasting victimhood. It's about Article 1 of Belhar. God gathers without fear or favor, without considering your language or your race or your sexual orientation. And the unity of the church, no other conditions. So discriminating against LGBTQ people, persons, members of the church, would be a denial of the unity of the church. That's why it's an injustice, and that's why it needs reconciliation. But it is the unity of the church that is undermined and attacked at a fundamental level. And that is what we simply need to affirm, and maybe not even necessary to add anything to it, but simply to stop the conversation and live Belhar.
Live Belhar. On that note, Prof, I know you have written extensively on the embodiment of Belhar confession in the life of the church and the life of individuals in general. What would you say to those who still feel excluded and left on the periphery by the church? What would you say in connection with the material you have written about the embodiment of Belhar?
Well, I think one of the problems we have with Belhar is that people say, look, Belhar is about unity, reconciliation, and justice. It's not wrong, but it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
So in what I've written about ministerial formation, for example, is I got stuck in Article 1. Actually, I haven't even gone to Article 2, 3, and 4, and 5, because Article 1 is so fundamental. It is God who gathers the church. So it's not our church. It doesn't belong to us. We must take responsibility for the church locally and in all these bodies of decision-making and authority. But fundamentally, it is God who gathers. And therefore, we need to work with God. But God doesn't. God works. God gathers through and etc. through word and spirit. It says. Now, what does that mean? Word. That's God's revelation. That's the Bible. So God gathers through people, through human agency, not through angels, but through human agencies. Spirit-filled, spirit-guided, word-centered leaders. And that's why ministerial formation is so important. That's why I've been involved in it for so long, because that's the heart of the church's future. It's not because ministers are more important than others, but ministers embody that caring, gathering, protecting work of God in us and through us to build God's church. But so if you feel excluded, and it's not only on LGBTQI, there's also this racialized identities we've inherited from apartheid, which are called colored and African, which were imposed on us and foisted on us by colonialism and then perfected, you could almost say, by apartheid. And those things are not going to go away. And we realize now, 30 years later, 40 years after Belhar was written, that those are still live, poisonous ways of life in our minds and therefore in our practices. And that the Uniting Reformed Church is this experiment, this faith experiment of living together across these barriers. And we're not doing very well at it, I think. We succeed in excluding others on basis of language and on all sorts of power games. And Belhar undermines that racist history, that legacy, the terrible legacy that we have as a Reformed Church. But we're not working hard enough, I think. So living Belhar would mean members studying the Belhar Confession, knowing it, living it, and relating it to their daily lives. I also think, and I've just written an article about that, which was published today as we speak.
Wow.
I think we should rewrite.
Where is it published, Prof?
HTS. Theological Studies. Embodying Belhar, it's called.
Is it available online?
It's available online. It's free, open access.
Okay, maybe let's just take the opportunity and propel people to
advertise it.
Yeah, propel people to go and read and perhaps maybe have their own comments to the article.
I'd love to get comments because, you see, the Belhar Confession led to a church order that was written, 12 articles, very short, very brief, but holy in the sense that it's entrenched. You can't change the wording of the church order unless you have a 2/3 vote at the General Synod, after 2/3 of all the regional synods have decided that it's okay to change this word. So it's sacred ground, you can almost say. But most people don't know about the church order. When members in the church ask, what does the church order say? They're looking at the stipulations, how to baptize, how to call a minister. They don't even realize that the church order is at the beginning of that publication and is the foundation for everything else. But you see, the church order wasn't the foundation for the stipulations. The stipulations we have were taken with small adjustments from the old separate churches. It was the NG Sennenkerk church stipulations that were just translated into English and with some adjustments, but minor. But it didn't flow from the Belhar Confession. It didn't flow from the church order that was birthed by the Belhar Confession. And that's what we need to do now, is my argument. I'm saying let's all get together from the whole Uniting Reformed Church, from Namibia to KZN, all over, and sit down and say, if this is Belhar, and this is our church order, how do we want to give hands and feet to the life of a congregation and of a presbytery and of a synod? How do we do discipline, etc.? The whole story. And then maybe we will be able to reinvent the Uniting Reformed Church beyond these inherited divisions and to really start being a dynamic Belhar-shaped church. Because the shaping of the church at local level is not done by Belhar.
True.
It's done by the stipulations.
True.
And they don't come from Belhar or from the Belhar-shaped church order that we have. So we need a movement nationwide, you could say, of workshopping our church order and looking at how do we want to be church from Sunday to Sunday, from day to day, together across these barriers. And maybe in that way we can actually find each other at the deeper level, around the Word of God, around our confessions, and with our really progressive church order as a way forward.
No, I was about to say we can go on and on and on and on about these theological and church polity issues, Prof. But let's arrest it here for today. We shall make another time for you to come and expatiate on many other issues around the life of the church and theologize about the things we have done before or you are currently doing, because I believe people are hungry for theology. For quite some time, theology was left into conference rooms, lecture rooms, but people still don't know about this animal called theology. Only those who are privy, to study it and to follow it there and there. So we shall have another time where you will come and we have a conversation about a whole lot of other issues. But thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for your continuous wisdom that you impart to many of us and many of those around our church. Unfortunately, to our viewers and followers and subscribers, this is where we have to leave it for today. Please be on the lookout on our page on YouTube, Tsunami Conversations Podcast. That's where everything will be shared. Soon enough, there will be a TikTok page and also maybe an Instagram page for such conversations. And for today, we are leaving it here. Prof, I think as a parting shot, you can also, thank our viewers, but most importantly, appeal to them to subscribe to Tsunami Conversations Podcast.
Well, thank you, Munyane, for inviting me. You've done the invitation. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that this will be stimulating everyone to further thinking. Let me conclude by saying a theologian is not somebody who studied theology, somebody who's got a degree in theology. Every believer who is thinking about her faith, who is considering who is God and what does it mean to be a child of God or a servant of the Lord, is a theologian. So this is an invitation to become better theologians, deeper theologians, more connected theologians. Thank you very much for inviting me, and God's blessing on your ongoing podcasts.
Thank you so. Tsunami Conversations podcast.
Please subscribe. please go there. I'm going to go there.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you.
And Kyalebo.
Go well.
Thanks for watching Tsunami Conversations, the platform to engage on theological discussions, spirituality, church polity, and religious matters. Our aim is to impart knowledge to the people of God. Welcome to Tsunami Conversation.